Hello everybody, welcome back to the workshop. So today we are going to address some common issues with making tongs. Now, as the title suggests in the thumbnail there, is I do not believe these are the greatest type tongs to be made. Now this is the classical version, but they present a lot of issues for new beginning smiths at trying to make tongs. Now, I always struggled with these as well, and I think that these came about as more of a practice in forging method or learning how to move steel into very specific areas than what they are handy as far as being efficient at making a set of tongs. Now this method is taught in every single book on blacksmithing ever. This same, turn 90 degrees, hit, turn 90 degrees, hit it, turn it 90 degrees, hit it, and then you go all left, 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 or all right, right, right. It doesn't matter, just as long as both tongs do the same thing, and you end up with a pair of tongs, or the end blank of a pair of tongs. And why I say that this method is inefficient at making a pair of tongs is because most people struggle with the boss area. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's go ahead and get into it over at the anvil. So the first step, for those who are not in the know about this method already, is you come to the near side of the anvil, or the side closest to the smith, and you lay off a certain amount of material. And you use half on, half off blows. And this essentially makes the bit of the tongs. Okay? And you're supposed to dress up any swelling you get there. But this here draws down the bit of the tongs, or the portion that is actually going to bite the material. You guys can see that there. So that is the first step in making your tongs. The second step in making the tongs is we will make a left-hand turn and go to the opposite, the far side of the anvil, which I'll relocate the camera for, and we will turn it at about 45 degrees, tilt the handle away about 45 degrees from our bodies, and we'll drive that offset of the jaw itself, or the bit of the tongs, to make our boss area. Then after that, we'll turn it another 90 degrees, still all going left, and set off the area for driving down our actual boss. So I'll go ahead and get this heated up again, and I'll switch to the opposite side of the anvil, because that's where we will complete all the rest of these maneuvers. So now, we went from having it this way, we're turning it to the left, and we're putting it over the edge of the anvil at about 45 degrees, at just where that original set down was. And now we're supposed to hammer just straight and flat down. There's some things that are taking place here now that I don't know if you guys can see this, but that seriously hurts and affects the smith as far as the beginning smith. If you notice, this is starting to twist. It's doing that because of the kinetic energy that's implied. So as you can see, the kinetic energy here is causing this jaw to rotate up. And then that's a problem. If it's rotating up like that, now we have to try to tweak that back into place. But for most beginning smiths, once again, we have to come back down. They'll stop at this point, they'll fight with this a little bit, but then they'll move right on to trying to set down the boss here, making another left-hand turn, setting off for the boss, and then hammering down the boss. And I'll go into this a little bit more, and chances are this is starting to look like a lot of you beginning smiths' tongs out there. So let me readjust the camera a little bit more, get this hot again, and I'll be right back with you. We're going to go ahead and do our offset for our boss now. Once again, we are going to turn it to the left, and we're going to divide the material roughly into a cube of material. We're going to use half on half off blows to set that down. And then we're going to refine the jaw, the boss area. Some hammer blows here. And then I'm going to come back here to the far edge. Sorry it's off camera. I'm going to try to straighten out this jaw. And then I'm going to hammer away here. Now, I'm not going to take this much further because this is the point that I'm wanting to take and make today with this video. I'm just going to show the looks of this tong, and then I'm going to diagnose some of the things that are wrong here and why that this is not a very effective or efficient method of making tongs. Yes, you can get the jaw here, and yes, you can get the boss, and yes, you can get it prepped for making reins and all this other stuff, but there's one big holdback to this method, and it's one of the things that really hurts a lot of the beginners when you're first starting to make tongs. Now, this isn't to say that my method's better than everyone else's or this or that. This is simply just a case study of what I struggled with the most when it come to making tongs. And one of the things I struggled with the most in making tongs was this hinge joint area. And it's one of the most troubling things that most people have problems with. So I'm going to take this over to the bench. We're going to take a look at it real quick. And then we'll talk about what the problems is with it here. And then I'm going to show you how you can correct it if you choose to use this method. There's one additional step you have to do in order to correct some of the issues I'm talking about here. So here we are. I've gotten you guys up a lot closer to the anvil, and I changed the angle a little bit. So this is what we're left with so far, okay? And this is what most smiths will get to when they're first starting tongs. Now, the funny thing about this is this area here in this boss doesn't look like much like a boss. There's still a lot of rounding up and compression that you have to do for it to turn it into an actual boss. And some of that can be done by just punching a hole and drifting it to the size of the pin, and this will naturally round out better in this boss area. But one of the biggest things about tongs is the hinge joint section itself needs to sit flush. It needs to sit flat against the other one, and that needs to be parallel to the tong reins. And if I lay this over just like this, you guys can see a clear taper that's tapering into the inside of that jaw. Well, when you make two halves like this, now you've got two pieces that have a taper on them, and they rub weird against one another. Now, there's a lot of things you can do after it's all heated up and you're dressing the rivet joint that can flatten itself out. But there again, I'm talking to the complete beginner here. To the complete beginner, this area here, trying to get this square and flush, is one of the biggest troubles of making tongs. Other than that, I mean, it's just hitting stuff flat. So there's no tapering really. It's just using flat face hammer blows on just the various edges, okay, and working your dimensions there. But you can even see here, that it tapers considerably so on the anvil. It tapers up the opposite way as well. So you kind of draw down a taper. Well, that's not something you want in your boss area. Drawing a taper down on this piece in this boss area will make it grind weird whenever you go to actually work with it. So I'm going to show you a quick technique of how you can address this issue here to get this all square and in plane. Because once again, you want this to run parallel with your other half of your tongs in order for them to fit well together. And that makes the rest of the cleanup and fitting and adjusting of jaws and everything else a lot easier. One of the other additional problems here is you're forced to put two tapers into something. And that drawing this out to a nice square even dimension is very difficult for most people when you're first starting out. So these are just some things I want you to think about. Once again, I am not just championing my own methods here, or my own methodology and whatnot. I am trying to point out some of the characteristic flaws in this method. Now, there's a lot of different easier ways of making tongs out there that you can do if you are a beginner and just getting started. Now, where does this method come in where it really excels? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. If you are doing a drop the tongs weld, that means you're welding on a rein to these, and you're not going to draw out the material any further after you get this shaped. This is actually a perfect method for a drop the tongs weld. The reason why is because you're leaving all the mass of the parent bar stock and you don't have to upset anything. So you forge out your jaw in, get the boss and everything the way you want it, and the jaw pretty much, and then you flip it around, hold it with a pair of tongs, and then this gets cut off, scarfed. It's already bigger than what your reins are going to be, and then you can lap weld on a rein and dress it out, and then it's all one nice even thickness through here with a welded on rein. With my method of making tongs using the 1/4x1 flat stock method, like you guys have seen me use in so many videos, this is designed around drawing out a pair of reins. It would not be as handy to try to weld on a pair of reins using this method as it would be for this method. So this method is still a good method, but you need to think of it more, not that it's an efficient way of making tongs, but this is a great way if you are a beginner of practicing moving and shaping material to very specific sets or points on a place. So you can center punch mark it to start, forge it out, forge that bit out, see what happened, do that on your next piece the same, and work at making tongs like this. That's perfectly okay for practice. But if you want to take and make things efficiently, I would suggest choosing a different method of making tongs for yourself. Once again, if you're trying to go cheap and you're trying to learn how to make the tool and actually have the tool to use, it will probably be better to avoid this kind of method to start with and go with a simpler method of something like I've shown here, or doing a twist style tongs or a quick tong or anything like that will help you have a pair of tongs quicker and more efficiently than doing this method here. Once again, this is a good method to learn how to part up a bar of material, but it often requires you having another set of tongs to hold the bit of this while you draw out the reins. And like I said, I have found this method to be more inefficient for me, and that's my personal opinion of it. So now I'm going to show you how to address this taper here, this taper that's tapering down in here. How do we get rid of that? I'm going to go ahead and get another heat on this, and I'll show you how we're going to get rid of that. And here we go. So now you all have seen me do the 45, you've seen me do the 90 over. Now I'm going to show you how to correct that bit of a taper. You're going to lay where the jaw is pointing up, that offset of that jaw is pointing up. You're going to come back on the reins a bit, and you're going to hammer some half on half off blows, and then you're going to hammer right at the boss and hammer it back in to the rein area. And what that is going to do for you is create an area for your hammer to level out. And since your hammer can level out, this allows you to get that area in there nice and square. You can come right in here, work out this rein area a little bit, and that will allow you to get everything nice and squared up and working and looking beautiful. Again, you can make these tongs exactly this way and it's perfectly okay. But you see how I squared all that up now? See how all of that is an even thickness? It allows you to keep your hammer blows coming in nice and flush and square to the anvil surface. Okay? When it's like this and you're drawing down for the first time, your hammer is cockeyed because it's meeting a greater resistance on this side and a lesser resistance on this side. So more surface area of contact here and less surface area here, which is going to in turn make your piece taper down into that joint. So it is my recommendation, if you're going to use this tong method, to hammer the joint down to approximately 1/4 inch or 6 mil thick in that area, right up near the jaw. Then flip it, so go from this position, flip it, do your offset, but then go ahead and flip it again and pull it back. That's the missing ingredient there. Pull it back to the near side of the anvil and work from the boss back to the rein. And what that will do is that will even up all your surface material there and get you a lot better. So let me zoom you in a little bit better, see if you guys can see that any better. As you can see, that's all one even thickness now. It puts everything in line, everything in plane, and then this will really help you get and draw out your reins. Now obviously you can still draw this out. I can take another heat on this, I can work this back into it, I can forge out this little bit, it doesn't matter, because now my jaw area, the most important part of the tong at all, it is all nice and clean, and that's what we want. So I just wanted to take and share that with you guys today. Hopefully that'll help some of you out. I know there's a lot of beginner smiths out there that struggle with making their own tongs, and it's a struggle to find a cheap set of tongs, and so hopefully this will help somebody out there. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up and share it around with all your friends and blacksmithing groups and whatnots. And like I always say, God bless you, thank you for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.